Okay.
So, it's been an interesting and busy week, of course, again.
God, again.
And we've been continuing with telehealth, of course, which would be the, first update. Listen, medical cannabis, very active in Florida, fortunately. And as we tell everybody, our goal here at Compassionate Cannabis Clinic is to make sure that everybody maintains safe,
Yes.
legal, educated access to cannabis. And
Absolutely.
listen, if we're not in the highest, and no pun intended, and I mean it, if we're not in, seriously, the stress level that we have in society, I saw it
Oh my
yesterday on the news. I think
God.
38% of adults admitted to having some level of anxiety and
I'm sure a
depression
lot of
compared to a
people.
normal 11%.
I'm sure.
And I'll be honest with you, I think it's higher than 38%. I think people in general, they don't like to admit that they have anxiety or depression as a sign of strength. But my point
I'm
is,
not overly anxious or depressed.
it just
like,
listen,
I
it's
think
life
it's
in
just
2020.
life has changed,
It's
that's
life,
all,
life
yeah.
has changed. It's life in 2020.
Yeah,
Listen,
that's
I haven't hugged anybody in about 14 or 16 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, I need my hugs from my
Oh, I
patients.
still,
and,
with close friends that I see all the time, I hug and
well, I
we still
know.
kiss
I watch your
on and-
fantastic
yeah, my
parties,
dinner
your
parties.
dinner parties.
So I still do it, just with a close group of friends. I think if you take that all away, it would be extremely sad. And then I would be depressed and have anxiety. But
So I had an exciting night last night. We actually had up to 50 doctors on our Zoom. We had a Zoom call last night. This is what everybody should know who's watching today. And whether you're in the medical cannabis program or you're not in the medical cannabis program, never considered it. There's a group of doctors in the state right now that are very much interested in pushing forward with the advocacy for the common sense issues that we know are important to our medical cannabis patients. For example, this is interesting, and is the green room, of course, so we combine medicine and politics. We got our 60-day full extension of telehealth last week, of course, because Governor DeSantis granted a brand new 60-day state of emergency, right, for the state of Florida. Never announced in his press conference. You haven't seen it as a headline in the newspaper. But, it's interesting. The newspapers don't plug. But anyway, the point is that we want telehealth all the time. We know that come next year, after the 60 days runs out, we're going to have to either get another extension or have a window of time when we don't have it. We'll see how many further state of emergencies we need. And listen, who wants that?
But you know what, to be honest, if you listen to Fauci and all of the, the experts, they're saying we're going to go from this right into flu season, which is going to be worse. Take that plus coronavirus still on top. It's going to be a really bad 6 months.
Listen, just to finish up the first topic and go right to the next. But the point is, we know that telehealth, so to speak, should be low hanging fruit in next year's legislative session. Every legislator, red, blue, they should think green on this one. This is for the good of the patients. The patients love it. And the reason I think it's a low-hanging fruit is that we've already done telehealth in Florida right now for a number of months.
And it's worked
worked well.
I wish they would actually go back and do a survey or do something proactive and say, ask the patients, ask the physicians, ask the staff.
Listen, the Department of Health has got their hands full, Ruta, and I'll be honest with you, the OMU, I'd rather have getting their card process in order to get the emails out to my patients. They don't need to do a survey on telehealth. We'll tell them. But my point is,
so they get feedback. They need feedback because they don't hear it. So for them, they're going to shut off the program because they're going to be like, okay, it was emergency and we're done.
So the point is, write to your legislators and your senators and the Office of Medical Marijuana Use if you're a patient. But let's go right to the next topic, Ruta, because I don't want to let it go away. I'm a doctor. Politicians are not. Okay, am I right all the time? Of course not. Okay, but do I think about science all the time? And per Hippocratic Oath, do I try to think for the best of my patients individually and as a society? Yes, I do. Does every doctor agree with every measure that's going on to the extent of trying to keep the virus at bay? No, but I would say that almost every doctor, 99%, agree on masking. 99% agree on social distancing. 99% agree on the simple hygienic measures, right?
Absolutely.
So Dr. Fauci has been an expert for years. He remains an expert. And any effort to undermine him as a man of science and a doctor is insulting to me as a clinician.
It's insulting as a human being who thinks. If you want to take a scientist's word over some
I'm just trying to keep it as nonpartisan as I
This
can.
isn't partisan. This is for
But
me.
Dr.
it's a
Fauci
nonpartisan.
didn't go from the expert
No.
8 weeks ago to a bumbling fool today. Okay, and it's so insulting to me because we need our physician leaders to be able to stand up and speak the unencumbered truth as they see it. They may not always be right, but they're always going to attempt to do it from the appropriate direction of science
Yes.
and for the good of their patients.
Of course. And even and I'll speak from a non-physician viewpoint. If you can do something to alleviate a burden on society, aren't you going to try to do that as a human being? As you, and this is what gets me. And again, I don't want to be going down the political road, but you have all of these so-called Christian right wingers. Well, aren't you supposed to do better for your fellow man? So wouldn't you think wearing a mask is not such an encumbrance on you?
It's interesting how the wearing of the
Even,
mask
like,
has
it's
become
become
such a symbol.
It's ridiculous.
You know, I think in
It's
America, we
ridiculous.
always have the image that we are invincible here. You know, we
You know,
are,
or
and we watched other societies having to wear masks.
Okay,
And
but
we kind of shook our heads.
And we shook our heads, but those countries that wore the mask, like Taiwan and Hong Kong.
I mean, we're talking a couple of 3 years ago or 4 years ago
They've
before all
always
this.
worn masks. They have. It's part of their society now, and they keep the germ spreading low. America has been fortunate, but it's also extremely arrogant, and it needs to take itself down a few pegs and care about its fellow human who walks next door or lives next door and is 90 years old and has a comorbidity of some kind. And you have to worry about those people.
I think it is a sign of respect
It
to you know, but listen, and I'll be honest with you, my son in Houston, you know, comes at me with an entirely different side of it. He's a property manager for 2 million square feet of retail office space for his uncle in Houston, Texas. And I'll give a good shout out to my son, Josh, working his butt off because he's the one that's having to lock people out to give people the bad news that, you know, they can't continue their business. And literally his job, he tells me, is at risk because of the number of properties that haven't been able to go forward. So my point is, this is an American tragedy right now that we need to figure out. And
actually, if you wore the mask, it would help businesses because technically we wouldn't be back in this stupid pandemic rising numbers that are going through the roof had everybody just worn a mask or done social distancing a little bit longer. The businesses, if you're pro-business, you should have worn a mask. You should have.
But I'm sympathetic to every aspect of the American tragedy. And once again, you have to look at those measures that we can do, that we have to do. Listen, 2020 society, and you know, we talk about this from the cannabis angle, you know, when we talk about it from the law enforcement angle, you can't be a law enforcement officer in 2020 like you were in 1980 or 1950. And there's very, very, very few of them. But if you're a bad apple, you're going to be seen. Unfortunately, it's incited the discussion of racial and social injustice and police brutality and things of that
Which
nature.
opens a whole other topic.
I know, because we're in 2020. Because we're in 2020. Same thing with cannabis. You can't be doctor in 2020 because everybody knows that the policies about cannabis specifically and drug policy in general has been so detrimental to society. We're still in Schedule 1 designation, everybody. Schedule 1 designation means there's not even any research value to the cannabis plant. Yet we have Epidiolex recently approved, you know, for use in seizure disorder from the cannabis plant. So to me, it cuts at the social fabric of society when you have such idiocy at your policy levels.
It is at the policy
and as a clinician,
level.
It's a moral issue to me. You know, whether I'm going to follow with ridiculous policy or whether I'm going to advocate, assist, educate my patients.
Well, it was interesting because yesterday we had Ed James here. For those that don't know, he's a very big social activist in the African American communities in Sarasota and Manatee County. Well, he was here yesterday. We were discussing programs that Los Angeles had, Massachusetts has, the state of Illinois has, and that's actually to bring in African Americans into the cannabis space. And when we were talking about it yesterday, we were saying that the state of Florida, because of its vertical system, one, it's an impossibility for a minority, even under social programs that are trying to give equality to minorities to enter that space. the numbers are just so high that it's impossible for them to enter. But one of the other things that was interesting as we were speaking, Dr. Berry came in, we were talking about the conditions that qualify for medical cannabis. And one of them was sickle cell anemia, which inherently is disproportionate to African Americans, and it's not approved as
Can't even
one
be
of the
discussed. It wouldn't even be brought up in committee last year.
And so it's actually eliminating an entire population, being discriminatory against African Americans who tend to have high numbers of sickle cell.
Yeah.
And it was
So these are the type of
amazing.
issues that we discussed last night in that Zoom meeting with the 50 medical cannabis clinicians in the state of Florida. Also, really importantly, Ruta, we had about 6 medical directors of the MMTCs, which are the dispensary world. You have to understand, everybody. And listen, we have to remember that the people watching don't really know these intricacies.
Yeah.
We're not involved in the MMTC world. We can't sell product. I can't invest or work for any of the MMTC
Take a penny
organizations.
from them in any
It's
manner.
right, it's in statute, and they can't participate in our world.
Yeah.
So a lot of times there's a kind of disjunction between us. Last night, one of my main goals was to put the brick with the mortar, the offense with the defense, so to speak, right? Because as a group of clinicians, we've talked, and the medical directors, have never really been involved. So last night was fantastic that they were, but this is my point. That type of low hanging fruit of, making sure that we get the, now job protections, believe me, that is not low hanging fruit. That's going to be a tough effort in Florida. But how about state by state reciprocity? You
Okay,
recognize.
but you have it deemed, here we go again, it's deemed as a necessity for emergency purposes.
I'm
as
not
a
giving that
medicine.
back to them. So my point is, when we get
No,
into
and then
legislative
you're-
session next, are we in January or March this year? Do you know, Ruta? I don't
know.
either. It's going to be interesting to see if how they're going to do that and whatever.
Yeah,
But the
it's-
point
I think
is,
it's gonna be January.
state by state reciprocity. If you have a card up north, you should be able to get your card down south,
Yeah,
no
that
matter what
makes
your qualifying
sense.
condition is up north. That would help tons of snowbirders, obviously, right? They still need education. One of the striking
do.
things is that people come down from up north and they have their cards, but they still haven't been educated on the endocannabinoid system.
And
as
it's
we like to do
we
it.
need to do a movement of education.
Well, we
period.
do,
We do.
which is
I
another
think
whole green room.
that's another-
But the
yeah.
second thing, and listen, as you came up last night in the Zoom, we need to have a multiple caregiver system. So in an assisted living facility, 1 or 2 people in the facility can deliver the medicine to the
Medicine.
clients in the facility. One of the doctors brought that up last night in this issue that I necessarily haven't worked on, but she has.
Oh, yeah.
So we need legislative focus there.
Okay.
Telehealth is another one. And once again, these type of issues with social injustice and racial diversity and things of that nature. Once again, who couldn't agree that sickle cell anemia with pain that starts at a young age, and it's always chronic. These patients should have the right to try every substance available to avoid narcotic addiction.
Exactly, and this is a natural substance, and we keep going back to that. And it's funny because some of the comments from last week is one of the things that people are liking about the green room is it's green. It's not a pharmaceutical medicine, that it is a natural, it's a plant, and we're getting comment after comment about that.
Listen, I'm writing a new article for High Life magazine, and I think the title of it, Don, or something is going to be "The Plant in 2020. It's Not Our Fault," or something like that. Seriously,
Sorry, it grows like a weed.
Right, listen. I speak to this. We're stuck in 2020. It's the big pharma, big alcohol era of society. The humble plant was left behind long ago for very corrupt reasons. Monetary, because it couldn't be processed through the hypodermic needle, oil-based as it was, right? And then we had Harry Anslinger and Black Swing and Mexican Wild Beast. That was in the 30s. And then we had Richard Nixon in the 70s, who needed a drug war against blacks, Hispanics, and hippies. Per Haldeman, who's testified to it. And then we had 1980. And Don, this is the 5 aspects of the article. Then in 1980, the tape should be going, oh, it is, that's good. No, seriously, we had Nancy Reagan just say no. And this is your brain on drugs. So that was the last assault. But the point is, we're 40 years past 1980, and it's narcotics. It's narcotics that are killing people. It's continued alcohol and tobacco use. It's depression and anxiety. It's auto accidents. It's lunacy. So my point is, you can't look at cannabis as anything but me being 1895 doctor, everybody, before 1901 when the hypodermic needle was created, because I'm going to pull cannabis out of my black bag in 2020, just like I would have pulled it out in 1895 if I was coming out with the buggy and the whip instead of my Honda, which is paid off, by the way. And I am so thrilled about having a paid
No
off
car
vehicle.
payments.
I know, no car
Exactly,
payment.
no
It's like
car
the American
payments.
dream. But I want to get back to the American tragedy of let's
Yeah.
all try to join together to see if 4 weeks from now, if we can truly get back to schools with safety.
Oh, God.
You know, I've
That's
talked to
a-
so many parents right now. They just
So
don't know what to
scary.
do.
It's so scary right
Everybody
now.
wants to demonstrate that we as a society are going back towards, but everybody thinks of
Nervous.
the
A lot
good
of
of their
apprehension there.
tons.
Tons.
And it's not just kids, but we have so many multi-generational families now.
Because half those kids, if the parents are going back to work then normally and not working from home, they tend to go to their grandparents who are older, who are more susceptible to COVID. So you're gonna maybe create a massive mess. So it's very scary.
It's just an interesting time. And, you know, the
It
conversation that I
is.
had my son really hit me because I see it from his side. And his side was, if you really look at the numbers, you know, Dad, how much worse is it than just the flu, this, that, whatever? And my answer to
Yeah, a
him
lot
was
of people
simple. And
say
listen,
that. I agree.
it's hard to trust numbers. Listen,
It
we've got a
is, yeah.
huge problem in Florida right now with numbers.
Oh
If
my
you watch
God.
the Facebook
Well,
feeds,
did you see yesterday's thing that Washington, in the CDC numbers, we're not really wanting to give it the
So,
proper numbers?
what I
Or
related to
hospitals?
him
Okay.
was one of the things that I
Awful.
do trust is that my interactions with the
Crazy.
colleagues that have been in medicine with me for the past 35 years that are still on the front lines, they've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
So to me, irrespective of any number, the one word answer that I got from my hospitalist friend down in Miami, pediatric hospitalist, intensivist, chaos. Okay, chaos. One word.
But you know, this is one thing that's interesting.
So I got to
too,
trust
you know.
them to
We
know
do
that
have to
something's
trust
different.
them, but this is the thing that I feel like is really sad in our society. Like we go from like, oh, okay, Black Lives Matter, then Blue Lives Matter, then okay, the heroes are the frontline workers, especially the physicians, the nursing staff in the hospitals. And then there was like a wave against them almost because they were the ones saying COVID really exists, that things are really that bad. And then all the people are like, oh God, they're exaggerating. They're working there every day, every day. They're not sleeping.
And it
They
is-
come back with their faces all torn up from the PPE.
And it is the staffing issue that really is the key issue.
Yeah.
I watched the interview the other night with the CEO of the hospital over on the east coast of Florida. CEO is a nurse. She was doing shifts
Oh,
actually in the
God.
hospital to
Because
help
they're
the staff,
understaffed.
to help the
A
staffing
friend of
needs.
mine was in Sarasota Memorial and she said they're exhausted.
Exhausted.
She said they're exhausted.
Yeah.
And you know what? So if you have a neighbor or friend who's a physician, a nurse, works in the hospital, bring them dinner, bring them lunch, bring them some flowers and just say thank you. Really, just say thank you.
And just show them the respect
Yes, show
of
them
listen,
respect for what
that's my
they
point is
do.
that I can only I
Yeah.
can only trust what my friends are telling me and why it's
Mhm.
different. Listen, and here's another thing. People talk about when are the athletes going to come back? When are sports going to start back? Let me tell you one of the reasons they're very hesitant. We don't, and we haven't talked about this yet. We don't know about this particular virus.
No.
Nobody really knew that shingles would be caused by the chickenpox virus that you had when you were younger.
Exactly.
People didn't understand that there would be chronic Epstein-Barr viral syndrome after people got simple mono.
Yeah.
So these athletes that are operate at a high level of physical exertion, whatever they do, they're at 100%. 95% lung function doesn't work for them. So
And now they're saying it might affect their
some
brain,
brain,
and
there's
liver
stroke
function.
issues,
Yes, there's
maybe
a
the
lot of
immunity only
issues.
lasts for 2 months and then snaps back. I heard a little bit of a negative about
Oh.
the vaccine. So
Just
listen,
don't know.
I don't
Nobody
know where
knows.
this virus came from. We may never know where this virus came from. It's irrelevant. A lot of people worry about it, the conspiracy theories, this, that, whatever. All I know is what I can believe from what my friends tell me that are still out there doing frontlines work. And what I know as a doctor is that we don't know this virus yet. So it deserves the utmost of respect. So here, listen, guys, I'll just, we'll wrap it up. I think, Don, right? Probably coming up. So listen, here's the bottom line. We're going to stay open. We're going to stay open every day.
As long as
We're
we
going to
can.
continue to service our patients. We're going to continue to service our patients with the integrity and education that we bring every day. We're getting a lot of new patients. Our new patients continue to be never having used patients, do be ones, and patients that are trying to get off of street, unsafe, illegal cannabis product. They want reliable product. They want safe product. And we insist they get the education. And believe it or not, it's interesting when that patient comes in, They don't even think they need any education. That's the, doc, smoke more than you ever will, and grew it, and this and that. Went out of the garage when my kids were in their certain age. Or seriously, we'll say, listen, there's another side of the plant, CBD and CBC, the other cannabinoids, the entourage effect. Excuse me, they'll stop, they'll listen. And you know what? They'll come back at that 210-day visit thanking us because they're adults now.
Mm.
Can you imagine when you're 75, still thinking you're 18? You know, but we tell them you're not 18 anymore. You're not 18 anymore, and this is a medicinal product for you. They will come back thanking us because the integration of the other cannabinoids truly has helped their arthritis. Their sleep is better. Any number of those adult type
And
of
you
problems.
hear stories every day. Dr. Berry comes down the hallway to my office and he has a story to share of somebody that
Yesterday's was almost the most remarkable of all. A son calling from it for his mom, who has had a tremor of her lower jaw for 20 years. She now uses a 1-to-1 THC CBD cream on her jawline 3 times a day. And it's the only thing that has ever suppressed her jaw tremor.
amazing.
And so they had to call from the nursing facility. And once again, this goes back to the issue that we discussed.
Yeah, the nursing
So
home.
listen, there's issues to go forth, but I'm enthusiastic today because of the enthusiasm of the doctors last night to see if we can actually get together as one, every pun intended, joint commission
Joint
or
venture.
joint venture. I had a book called the joint venture, believe it or not, earlier in life.
I kind of like the joint venture.
It was. But anyway, a joint confederation, so to speak, of MMTCs and doctors to really see if we can exert a little bit of pressure into the legislative session. As everybody knows in Florida, you have to start doing that now because committees in October and November, and that's really where a lot of the work gets done on the legislation. And I didn't know any of that, guys, when I started down here, Ohioan as I am. So now I think we have an advantage to the extent of at least I have a better understanding of what goes on up in Tallahassee.
And for those, most of you probably got your vote by mail ballots. Please fill them out, get them in. Ron Turner, shout out to you, dude. You rock it.
That's why it's going to be such an
every single
unusual election
cycle.
because of the early voting,
Yeah.
and otherwise, we may not even know results on election night, and that's a scary thought,
Yeah.
unless there's some type of blue soup, but we try to stay green in the green room.
Yeah, we're green in the green room, but please get
Vote.
your vote,
That's
get
the
your
important
vote by
thing.
mail in.
Hey, if you don't
Makes
vote,
a
you can't complain.
difference.
I've always felt that
Exactly.
way.
So please vote, wear a mask, protect your neighbor, do it out of respect. That's all it is.
Yeah,
So
check us out in the green room next Thursday. I'm really enjoying these, Ruth. It's
we
fantastic
love those.
therapy.
So thank you and thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
I do enjoy these little green rooms.